Right, so I'll just explain a bit what we're going to do. This afternoon, we changed the whole orientation. So this morning we were looking at the national policies, how to design those in a way that are integrated and reach rural areas better. Now we're looking at it from completely the other end of the telescope. Okay, now we're looking at it from the bottom. Looking at certain some very interesting examples of grassroots activity, and the question is, what kind of policies would strengthen these activities? Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So first of all, we will. The first thing I need to do is to try and find a rapporteur. So we're going to have I'll go through the full steps. So we will have 3 presentations from the ground. Then we will have a discussion in these little groups. And what we want you to do in these little groups is a bit like what you did this morning, but it's slightly more structured and with less coloured dots and things like that. We want you to think of the 3 cases and these grassroots activities, and to put on the green post-its the policies that you think are working well and need to be maintained. And then on the yellow ones, the things that need to be strengthened to ensure that these activities are consolidated, they grow, and above all, this session is mainly about the economic side of things, jobs, and what needs to happen to turn these activities into viable economic jobs and so on. And when we do this, we will be again using the tool, thinking of the tool, the self-assessment tool, and we would like you to think when you do your post-its in terms of 3 main categories of enabling factors, we called them. If there's no room on a table, you can start creating another table, but if there's not enough. No, we don't want you to be on your own. You can't talk to anyone. They'll invite you into one of their groups. Yeah, I think that's okay. Yeah. You go in that one and okay. Is that okay? So, okay, in the self-assessment tool, in the process of designing the tool, we talked to a lot of groups, a lot of people on the ground. And the 3 main areas that they said, needed to be worked on were building local capacities for action. And the capacities was about, if you're going to do an energy project or you're going to do something to do with the digital, this requires really quite detailed skills and knowledge. So how do you get that skills? We're going to hear about a lot of projects where you hear a lot of voluntary activity, a lot of community work, but that can go on for so long, and then people start getting burnt out. So how do you fund, how do you support this activity, those sorts of local capacities? So that was the local capacities one. Flexible funding, not funding that you have to go through 50 different processes in order to get it, and you have to have a certain size, and then the justification is so complicated it's not worth having it. So some the quick and small scale money that you need. Creating and building linkages. What needs to happen so that the local authority and the community groups, the different agencies that are working in a territory can bring together the local city. So linkages, that was the other one. And the last category was innovation, and the capacity to innovate, to think out of the box, to go into new areas and not just carry on the same path that often doesn't go anywhere. So those were the three categories. And so we will listen to the three talks, and then you will have a discussion around here. You will collect your ideas of what needs to be kept on the yellow ones. No, the green ones. Sorry, I got to get it right. The green ones, and then the yellow ones. Sorry, you can hear? Yeah. Okay. All right. And then the yellow ones are for what needs to be strengthened. Okay, and we will put that up on the board. So that's the process we're going to go through. We need somebody from this group to report back, a rapporteur, a volunteer rapporteur. So you would do it? No, it would be the whole thing. Yeah. Okay. So. No, so this will be, you can listen to your group, and then when we put the things up on the brown paper, it'll be reporting back on that. And I'm sure others of you can help out if something's left. No, stay in the same group, and you will report back on when we bring everything together. Okay. All right. Okay. All clear? Good. Okay. So now we have the first presentation, which is sorry. It's not going to be in the order of that you have it down there. I said it to you. We'll start off with Elizabeth Acedo Labat. Where are you, Elizabeth? There you are. About a really interesting community project she worked on in Busto, in a little village in Galicia, I think. No. Asturias, Asturias, patria querida. There you go.
Hi, good afternoon. This is a small, little, tiny project that gathers some European interest, just because somebody who knew which way to go or knew some opportunities happened to come across it and encourage the local people to take it to another level. We call the project Illustrated Villages, and it comes from a little library in Busto. Busto is a tiny village in the coast in northern Spain, in Asturias. And what happened there is that 5 ladies, sorry, I'll start this if I know how to. Where do I point it? I point it that way or that way? That way. Sorry. It's the other green button. Yes. Okay. Right. So that's what we would like our villages to be: quiet but not isolated, ancestral but not abandoned, and we would like them remote. They are remote but not forgotten. That's what we dream of the villages to be. And this is Busto, that cluster of houses. If you look far into the hills, that's where my village would be, even smaller, 10 people in the middle of the hills. So that's actually a big village compared to the others around, yeah? So that was the dream for Busto, what we just said, a small village which is amongst 174 in the council. And a dot in a 353 kilometers square municipality, massive municipality. That these ladies got a bag of books that somebody gave them, and amongst them there was a librarian. And they had the disused building of the schools, and they thought, let's start a library. So they called for donations, and they started a library, right? So soon they were inundated by books, and then they created the little library in the village. But the point was, there wasn't a meeting place in the village. They had lost all sense of community. There was only a little bar, and there is a couple of businesses. There is a cake shop, a cake maker, and a couple of things, but not very much left. So what they created with the library was a meeting space and a cultural activity and a place to see each other as well. What did they manage? Well, over 600 members. There's more members there than in the main library at the town. at the main town. 6,000 books and many more stored. 2,000 followers in social media, because they're very, very active. They're all volunteers, they're super active. And they are doing about 30 cultural events so far in the year and a bit they've been working. And sometimes running them twice because there's so many people attending from the villages that feel the call to that library, not the one at the main village, because they feel they are rural. Yeah. And they've been recognized by private library for public use status, which is very rare in Spain. It's like recognizing that they are open to the public, but by private means. There's only 2 in Spain recognized like that. So they have like monthly sessions for the special needs center nearby in another village. They spend the whole day. They have a full day trip, and they prepare activities, and they take their packed lunches, and there's a lot of business like that. There are activities for adults, talks, presentations of books, discussions. There are book reading and storytelling activities for children, but there's also the hub for the village. Now there are, you can do from Zumba lessons to English. I just met them because I teach English, and they call me to teach English there. And I arrived and I thought, what is this? What have you done here? Yeah, so I was like taken by it, and they were saying, no, the village, the council have just let us use the schools. They could close us down anytime. They haven't helped us. They haven't given us a penny for a shelf, even. They are ignoring us. They are a bit, even their nose is a bit up because they feel we are opening an alternative library to the main village one. Yeah, that was the situation. They were thinking, well, let's see how long they let us be here. And I was thinking, no, you have something special here. Let's take it to another level. Let's do something about it. Let's see what we can do. So they carried on. They are very artistic. They have many copies of the same book, so they do art with the books. and they've put a little house for people to take books and replace as they wish in the coastal walk they've got, for example. And then we thought, I told them, oh, there's a thing called social innovation. We could try and revive the spirit of the community here, because you started it. So why don't we set up meetings with the community to think, how was this village viable before? What were we doing before? And how can we do it in modern terms now? Where are the resources? Where is which way we can work it out? For that, we need the community to get involved. And that tiny project started as these kind of meetings. Yeah? That's the project itself, which is called Illustrated Villages. So, and what my aim was there was like, oh, if we started there, I can bring it to the smaller villages at the top, where we can even, to show you something, we wanted to put some decorations for Christmas. We couldn't even agree on that in the small, more divided villages in the hills, because the community spirit is completely gone. Yeah, and we argue for anything because everybody's too busy, too bothered, and too overwhelmed. So then we saw a call that I came across for projects related to libraries, in a European call from the European Cultural Foundation, and I told them, hey, guess what? We can get some help in the planning and so on. If we get picked for that, shall we try? And they said, we trust you. Let's try. So we applied with a tiny project, and we thought we wouldn't get in it, and with it, they got us in with 32 projects of all over Europe, with help to develop from democratic society they work with. And they helped us with the planning. There was some money in it, a little grant. We only asked for small thing because we hadn't even thought what to do with it. So we were way below the limits that we could ask for money for. But we were saying we don't want a big grant where we go crazy and then it dies. That's what I was trying to explain before with the subventions. If there's no plan, we can see it in every village in Spain, how many councils have used money to develop infrastructures that hadn't a plan behind them, a theater, and then there was no program, and that's been closed, and then we have another grant to fix it, which is completely surreal. So what we were saying is we need a little money to start off for the administrations to start recognizing us. And then we'll work out how this is going to be kept going, because their ideal situation would be where somebody can dedicate time when we create a single job or 2 little part-time jobs, and that becomes something that's manageable. It's almost finished, yeah. So that's the style of the abandonment we're suffering in the villages in many places in Europe, yeah, with declining services, with falling population, and without opportunities. So what we were trying to rescue here is the community spirit. Those villages weren't built by municipalities, by the European Union. They were built by the people. And the people has to dream about a future. There's no way you are going to, a single entrepreneur is not going to save a village if the village doesn't work together what they need for the future. You know, and well, so that's the 4 ladies. There's one missing there, and it's not me. I'll just appear after. That started the library. That's how it looks now. Since we took some European visibility and media visibility, and pre-election time, the council took an interest. They've invested 12,000 euros in reforming the outside of the schools, which were a mess before. They've signed a contract with the council, so they will invest 1,500 euros a year in the library. That's better than nothing that they had before. And the grant we asked to the Cultural Foundation, it was only 1,500. They doubled it because they saw we could do much more. So it's a little step, but it's now, and it's not finished. We're going to keep ensuring visibility. We're here. we didn't think it would be of much interest, but it is a lot. It's very, very interesting for us for our next step, which is trying to make that project secure and trying for it to create jobs, for example, or even to have a continuity so the community can dream of their future. So
thank you. Thank you. No, that's a really inspiring example of the process of really starting small with maybe a chance event, some books being given, and then the people taking it over and really step by step, it's snowballing. And the question is, what you ended with is how to then turn this into something sustainable with jobs and so on. How to support that process more in other places, but also, so that's what we would like you to talk about. But before that, we go to the next speaker, who is Kate. Kate, you are there. You are Kate. Can you come here?
No, but I'm just saying they can't.
You can't see the PowerPoint. Oh dear, that is not good at all. Can you do you want to move the chairs? Okay. So Kate is going to talk about a hemp and flax cooperative in Ireland, with the same idea of what helps the seed to grow into something big.
Good afternoon. Now, I set up a hemp co-op, and it came about due to Facebook. I decided to grow hemp in 2016, and so many people loved the idea that a journalist wrote an article which went worldwide in 24 hours, which was quite amusing. But it just shows you the power of social media. So what happened after that article is that I'd find farmers, and I'm a farmer, I found farmers wandering around my fields looking at the hemp. And then I had elderly farmers that would come to me because their children were in Australia or North America, and they wanted to come home and do something with the land. They didn't want to do what I do, which is milk cows, which is a lot of hard work. They wanted an easier lifestyle and something that was more sustainable. So I registered the co-op in May 2018, and we set it up to address the issues that are affecting peripheral areas of Europe where we're not considered economic anymore. So we're effectively abandoned. In the co-op, we have a lot of young farmers. 2/3 of our farmers are young, they're under 30. But we also have builders, processors, scientists, because hemp leaf and flower has a lot of bioactives. My background is biochemistry, as you can see. I have an interest in the chemicals. But, it engaged people all over society. That's where I live, there. I'm literally clinging on to the end of Europe. I'm in the most beautiful place on earth. It's called Bale, which means mouth. It's the Irish for mouth. It's the mouth of the River Shannon. But it's become one of the most socio-economically deprived areas in Ireland. And yet, ironically, it created Kerry Co-op that became Kerry Group, which is a leading, PLC supplying food ingredients. So we have the potential, we have the innovation in the west of Ireland. And if you look at the whole west of Ireland, it's all very socio-economically deprived now. And to add insult to injury, our local authority deemed us as having no tourist amenity value, no landscape value, and or amenity value. So we were effectively written off by our local government. And for very good reason, because what they did then was put us full of wind turbines. So we've had this silent clearance of North Kerry. I wrote about this in the media because I was so angry about it. So I found a crop that interested farmers. I widened the brief of it to include flax and maps because, like I'm wearing linen today made from flax. There's a tradition of growing hemp and flax right down the western seaboard of Ireland. And, this means that we can stack enterprises. We can put hemp and flax in as rotational crops. So farmers don't have to give up what they're doing. They love farming. I love my cows. I wouldn't give them up for anything. I nearly love them as much as my children. But, I want to improve my income. I have gone from 70 cows down to 20 cows. And I'm actually making more money by introducing different components to my farming. So it's much more interesting. And farmers come to me all the time. They bring their children to see pigs. When I first came to North Kerry 50 years ago, every farm had pigs. Now there's no pigs. So it makes it interesting. At a local level, I brought Task in. They're a social think tank. And they're actually asking the people what they want. Because I often feel that's not happening. So what the co-op needs is support and policy changes. The policy in, the policy in Ireland actually locks us out of funding. Department of Agriculture will not fund us. Enterprise Ireland will not fund us because industrial hemp is cannabis sativa L. It's not psychoactive, but we're lumped into the Misuse of Drugs Act. we need policies so that places like North Kerry, which were completely written off, and yet we have a wealth of language. You know, we're people that tell a story. We're storytellers. We have great writers. There's something in the milk, as they say. All our services are gone. We don't even have dental services for children. They've taken everything away from us. They've just told us now that the local post office sorting place is being withdrawn because we're not economic. So, you know, I'm trying to drive this idea of co-ops for the community. And I also have to ask this question: how do we enshrine a value on social capital? Everything cannot just boil down to shareholder value. The likes of Kerry Group, who have made a fortune out of our community, now pay us the lowest milk price in the country. So my take on this is rural renaissance needs to be social. We need social cooperatives which register as social charitable trusts, because then you can access funding from foundations and philanthropists. It's very ironic that the people who have all the money won't give you money unless they can write it off against tax, which is the reality of the American island funds. So a social cooperative like Le Kuma in France will invest in new equipment, new businesses for the cooperative area. And, you know, social cooperatives are the only future I see for places like the west of Ireland. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's certainly true that you're good at telling the story of and making us feel the story of an area that won't sit down and die, is what you're saying, isn't it? So, okay. And the question is, again, what sort of, it's written off in the funding criteria by the agencies and so on. What do you do? What sort of structures, what sorts of policies would allow that to be turned around? Tom, if you could come in then now, try to keep to the 10 minutes as well. And then, Tom, I'd like you to sit over in this group so that we have one of you, the speakers in each of the groups. Here, Tom.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. That's my one slide. I hope you can see it fairly clearly. My phone was stolen in Athens a couple of weeks ago, and I lost all my emails and my photographs and everything. And I just happened to have tweeted this. Being president of a pan-European organization, as I am, European Rural Community Alliance, I get spoiled for choice in terms of examples to show and to give. I think the three of us this afternoon come from the social economy side of things. So in fairness, I think it's important to say at the beginning that businesses, individual businesses, if we are trying to say to our young people, stay in your community, establish businesses, profit-making businesses, then we shouldn't just think that the social economy is the only option. To us, it's an important one, it's a sustainable one, and generally speaking, social economy efforts are very, very sustainable, and they do last through pandemics and everything else because of the voluntary and the visionary elements to them. But we do need to recognize that there have to be standalone businesses, and we have to encourage people to take on businesses. And it's not just also something for young people. We want to promote young people into our communities. We just can't fill rural communities, change the depopulation into a repopulation of middle-class, elderly, white males who have comfortable jobs in the cities and suddenly impinge on the home housing market by buying cottages and so on and so forth. There has to be a balanced structure. But we've just had an example of my two previous speakers who are not 20-year-olds anymore, dare I say, but are also innovative and willing to change models of farming and whatever else. In other words, the phrase, I suppose, is you can't live on thin air. That's an English phrase. You have to have some income generation in the activity. And this typifies, in a way, I think, all that we're trying to say. This is from a care farm in Hungary, which I visited back in January. The elements about it are that care farming is a very, very small proportion of the general common agricultural policy, but it's a very vital one because it targets the most disadvantaged in our society. So it has to be championed, and the new CAP has a social dimension to it. But the thing about this farm was, first of all, the two youngsters in the farming family went over, as it happened, to the UK to get some work experiences, came back with a determination to do something with their own farm. So they persuaded their parents that they should go into care farming. So that's the first thing. You need some vision, you need some experiences from outside your community, which you can then go back to at a slightly more mature age and help to deliver it. The next thing is that what they were doing on that care farm was every morning picking up young people primarily with mental health and physical disabilities in a shop, in a van, bringing them onto the farm to do the work of the farm. So looking after the animals, and it was very, very therapeutic. But the strapline phrase, which at first I thought was a bit hurtful, was, we want to make them into taxpayers. And the notion that you want to make people with disabilities into taxpayers sort of grated with me initially. But what they were trying to say was, we want to give these people the opportunity to generate income for themselves and not to be completely reliant on the state. And you know, there was a sense of pride in the people who are doing their jobs there. Now then, the other thing is, and you can look at, there's a pile of rubble on the left-hand side of the picture, and proper bricks on the side. And I think we're talking about backs to the wall, if I can use the brick analogy, that in these most deprived rural areas, we are backs to the wall, 10 people left in your village and so on. But what was happening there was, in reality, local builders were bringing their rubble from their house renovations, dumping them in this farmyard, and these people then were going through them and salvaging reusable bricks, and therefore generating an income from that. So I thought, well, that's symbolic, isn't it? We are trying to build bricks now then of a future for rural areas, and what do we need to make that happen? What instruments are required? But they were doing, it was all circular in the food they were generating, and I thought that's a wonderful example of what we talk about as social innovation. Another example I have is of a wind farm in South Wales. Initially, it was an all-industrial areas with its coal mines everywhere. All those jobs vanished. So people, again, were out of work, large numbers of population, not many skills apart from coal mining. And these people wanted to buy a wind farm. And all the obstacles they faced, they failed 3 times to get planning permission. They had to overturn a judicial review. But now they have 2 turbines, they have £1.5 million worth of turnover, which then they reuse into that community. They have community shareholding, so it's not some international body with big shares and people to please. It's the community which owns the turbines and which then decides on an annual program what they will do with that fund. So that's an example, I think, again, of a few people coming together and saying we want to do it, but not giving up. That was the whole point. They could have given up at the first hurdle, but because they were visionaries, they were determined to go through these processes, and they took the people with them. Because not everybody in the community will buy into your vision. You have to sort of think about everybody in the community, and some people will say, I don't want this. I don't want a wind turbine on the top of our hill. But anyway, that's what they've done. The final point I'd want to make is that there has to be support, because when you bring a group of enthusiastic people together, they're always in a hurry. They want to do it yesterday. And sometimes crowdfunding is one of the biggest possibilities, I think, in the future. There's far less hoops to go through the European funds, and it's up to European funds to match the speed of that. But I've seen so many small communities. There's one pub in West Wales. It's called in Welsh Tafarn the Sink. The sink shed was a pub. So they had a sink roof and it became empty. they raised £300,000. What's that? 320,000 euros in 6 months from donations from the public. Wow! But then they've got that money, and there's a responsibility, and that's why an organisation in the UK called the Plunkett Foundation, founded by an Irishman, does so much work in helping community groups with governance. They list good examples. They will go in and give free advice to any community that wants to buy a pub or any other business enterprise. They will talk to them about governance, about how to create a responsible, accountable system, because that's the only way you can be sustainable. If you don't have proper governance, eventually you'll make mistakes and you'll bring the whole thing down, collapsing around you. So you do need the role of intermediaries, people who can pinpoint you to funding, help you with governance, share good experiences. And as I say, the Plunkett Foundation, if anybody wants to hear more about it, is definitely an organization that you could copy. So those are my saying. You need to generate income from these projects, and you need to think about the most disabled in communities and empower them. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, if you could go and sit over there so that we have one of the speakers in each of the groups, and I think that works really well. No, that's great, Tom, because you really outlined some of the steps. The fact that you need to have a vision and get outside, and the vision often doesn't come just from looking inward. You need to see what other people are doing. These administrative hurdles and things that people overcame through their work. The structures that you need, the community shareholding, the crowdfunding, and I think linking up with some of these things, we often hear that rural areas can be very important players in the green transition and in the digital transition and in all these transitions that are happening. But in reality, these transitions are being driven by very, very big companies which have all the legislation on their side, and the benefits of these transitions are not. They're often located in rural areas, but they're not benefiting rural areas. So I think if we can to finish up that, think a bit about what kind of support, what kind of policies are needed to make sure that if rural areas do play a role in these transitions, which are going to be sustainable in the future and so on, that they are really in the driving seat and really benefit from it. Okay, so we've had our three presentations. There is a presenter in each of the groups. Now you have about 25 minutes, yes, until quarter past 3, yeah, to talk among yourselves and to discuss and to try and use these post-its and fill in the things that need to be kept and the things that are important and are working well. Maybe there are not so many of those, but the ones that you want to keep. And then the yellow ones are the ones that need to be strengthened, need to be worked on. And those are the ones I think really should be the messages to the policymakers in the session. Okay, so over to you. Off you go.